The cost of living crisis in the United Kingdom continues. A new study by the consultancy Retail Economics has found that the UK's poorest households have almost $50 a month less in spare cash than they did a year ago. Meanwhile, the wealthiest 20% of households have gotten richer. They have about $45 per month more in December 2022 compared with a year before. This despite inflation. A different study found that more than half of the UK's people had become dependent on government benefits. The people were getting more in benefits than they were contributing in taxes. These benefits include public education, health services like the NHS. The study was by the think tank Civitas, looking at trends from 2020 to 2021, the height of the COVID pandemic. The Civitas study pointed out that the top 20% in the UK paid about 60% of the country's income tax. It has led to some denouncing the taxation system. Some Conservative Party leaders are calling the present tax regime unfair. They want to slash taxes, especially on high earners. This comes after British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said there would be no major tax cuts this year. So looking at both studies, we can make some inferences. The UK's poor have gotten poorer. The rich has certainly become better off. In fact, Britain's rich are richer despite the pandemic, inflation and the cost of living crisis. What happens to income inequalities if Tories do lower taxes? First, let's look at the tax data. Both the UK's richest 20% and poorest 20% pay taxes worth about 35% of their income. This is despite there being different income tax slabs. This happens because of indirect taxes. You cannot stop spending on essentials such as food and electricity. Any value-added taxes on these essentials go to the government. This means that though the poorest are not contributing as much in terms of income tax, they are paying a similar proportion of their income to the government. This means that though the poorest are not contributing as much in terms of income tax, they are paying a similar proportion of their income to the government. Income tax is considered a progressive form of taxation. It helps redistribute wealth and lower inequalities. In the UK, it is doing what it is supposed to do, helping out those going through tough times like the COVID pandemic. Indirect taxes are considered regressive. For example, the tax on a packet of bread will be the same for a billionaire and anyone else. So the poor will pay a larger proportion of their income on indirect taxes. They cannot do without essential goods. That's why they also bear the brunt of inflation. The Retail Economic Study says the United Kingdom's poorest experienced an inflation rate of 16.5%. Meanwhile, it was 13.3% for Britain's richest. This is because the poor spend about 2/3 of their income on essentials, but the richest spend less than half of their money on food and energy. Considering this, is it fair for Tories to lament people using government benefits? For them to consider tax breaks on the richest?